everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the fourth video in the Parenting and Radiology series. Today's topic will focus on how can your network or partner support you during the parenting and radiology journey. So for today's video, we have a special guest, Dr. Cara Morin. So I was wondering, Dr. Morin, if you could go into a little bit about your background in radiology and also your journey into motherhood.
Yeah, sure. So I did a combined MD PhD at the University of Maryland. And then I ended up marrying one of my co-MD PhD cohort. So we were both interested in pediatrics from the beginning. We both did our PhDs in infectious diseases. And then I ended up going into radiology and then continuing in fellowship training in pediatrics. So I'm now a practicing pediatric radiologist. And my husband did a pediatric residency and then a fellowship in pediatric critical care. And so he is a pediatric critical care physician.
Wonderful.
In terms of motherhood, so we had our first child during graduate school. I'm just trying to remember what year of graduate school, like our third or fourth year. And so she was born, and she was actually 6 weeks early. So she was a PPROM 34 weeker. And she spent a week in the NICU and then was otherwise healthy. And then our next child was born the fourth year of medical school. So we had finished graduate school, gone back to medical school, and he was born as fourth years in the spring. So then we started intern years together, having like a 3-year-old and a newborn. So that was a lot. And then our third child, who's our last child, was born during my fourth year of radiology residency, which I was a PGY5.
Gotcha.
And then, yeah, so then we continued. I did a fellowship, a 1-year clinical fellowship after that. And then we moved for a second clinical year fellowship. And then we finally got jobs.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So you're a good person to ask because it sounds like you've had kids kind of throughout this journey, throughout
Yes.
different stages. So this is a great topic, I think. So the first question is, what things can a partner do to support you during, training while, being pregnant or becoming a parent?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty important to have a partner that is an equal partner in child rearing. And that starts from the very beginning. So with our first child, since they were born early, I took some maternity leave or from graduate school, and then they couldn't start daycare because they had to be like a corrected age because they were preterm. And so my husband ended up taking, and I took like 10 weeks and he took like 6 weeks before she could actually start in daycare. And so from the beginning, it was like, we could both do everything with the baby. And that set us up pretty much for that just being the standard for all the rest of the babies. There are obviously things that not all partners can do in terms of breastfeeding and mostly breastfeeding. Other than that, they can pretty much do everything. But in terms of that baby stage and the not sleeping stage, that is probably the biggest, where you need a lot of help and you really need a supportive partner, whether you're in the medical school stage or in residency in particular. And so that is sort of the biggest thing is having a partner that's an actual true parenting partner, and not someone or just yeah, just someone who can truly take care of the kids without needing instructions.
A true partner. Yes, I like
Yeah.
that. So because your partner is in medicine himself, what unique challenges did you guys face because of that, and how did you navigate those challenges?
I mean, for sure the biggest thing is schedules.
Yeah.
So our schedules as medical students was crazy, and then our schedules as residents got even wilder. We had to do and continue to have to do a lot of balancing
Mhm.
in terms of when so radiology and critical care are obviously very different in how we cover clinical service.
Mhm.
Um, and so we just have to do a lot of balancing of when someone is on clinical service, when someone is on call, having the other person be available and trying to limit as much as possible the
Yeah.
times when we needed, I mean, because we already need a ton of childcare, right?
Yeah.
Our kids are bigger now, so it's a lot easier. But when we were in training, our kids were little.
Right.
So we needed a ton of childcare just to cover standard hours.
Yes.
So limiting the additional childcare by balancing our calls was huge and was an enormous logistical undertaking and required both of us, but also required both of our residencies, our chief residents, our chief fellows,
Yeah.
everyone involved in schedule making to help us, and then required our co-residents and our co-fellows to be willing to swap with us, which I still do to this day, to arrange for childcare.
Truly takes a village. Yes, they don't
Yeah.
lie. So if applicable, so did you have family nearby or were they able to visit? What advice would you have for family members who are maybe interested in helping a loved one in that process?
Yeah, we were lucky to have my family nearby, where we did our residency, where we did all of our training, um, or the majority of our training. So that was extremely handy.
Mm.
Neither of my parents at that time were retired, so they both still worked a lot. So it wasn't like they just like dropped what they were doing and were our babysitters. That's nice. Love for people that have that, but that wasn't for us. But at least pitching in a lot on the weekends when we were both on call, or even if one of us was on call but the other one was studying for boards, or those kinds of scenarios. That was very helpful. My husband's family was about 2 hours away, so not super far. And same thing, they mostly helped on weekends. If like things were totally dire, um, his mom was sometimes able to come down for a few days, but again, both his parents were working at that time. So there was like a limit to how much they could help.
So, all right. So this is the last question as part of the interview. So how did the support you needed change as you transitioned from medical student to resident to fellowship as an attending? Did you notice any changes between those phases?
I mean, all of it changes as your kids get older, and become a little bit more independent, or especially once your kids are in full-time school,
Mhm.
because that is very different from either daycare or having a nanny. So those are major transitions. And then the other major transition is going from medical school to residency. Obviously, you actually start to get paid. So you have a little bit of money where you can pay for more childcare.
Yeah.
And then once you become an attending, you can actually afford childcare.
Gotcha.
And that is a huge transition and like an enormous relief, because it certainly was our largest expense during all of medical school and training was childcare.
Great. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So that concludes our fourth video in the series. So I want to thank you so much for, taking the time to be interviewed for this project. I really appreciate it.